Okay, if you or someone you love can get pregnant, the Supreme Court is hearing a case this week that could have life or death consequences for you. It is incredibly important and almost nobody knows that it's happening. I really want to tell you about it, so please listen. The case is called Idaho v. United States, although some people are referring to it as Moyle v. United States. It was two cases that got sort of merged into one. Basically, the case is about whether or not women and other pregnant people should be able to access abortions in a medical emergency, when an abortion is the necessary care to preserve her health or stabilize her. Seems like that would be very, very obvious that the answer is yes, but according to the state of Idaho, the answer is no. And this is the question that the Supreme Court will be deciding soon, and they're hearing oral arguments on it this week. When you hear people talk about this case, you're going to hear them talk about something called Mtala. Don't worry about that. It stands for the Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act. It's basically a bill that was passed 40 years ago to stop hospitals from doing something called patient dumping. People would come in an emergency situation who didn't have insurance, and they would ship them off and say, no, you've got to go to a public hospital. So Congress came together and passed a bill that basically said if someone comes in a medical emergency, you must treat or stabilize them at least, and then send them somewhere where they can get treatment. But you must immediately address the emergency. You can't just kick them out, right? Seems, again, very intuitive, but not to Republicans. What Republicans in the state of Idaho and Texas are arguing is that because their states have passed abortion bans that only allow abortions when the mother's life is at risk, literally, the pregnant person needs to be at death's door before an abortion is permissible. And doctors are risking going to prison and losing their medical licenses if they mess it up. So there's a lot of fear in the medical community. So they're saying that because their laws say that, the Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act should not apply, because it would force them to give women and other pregnant people abortions when just their health was at risk, not their life. Now, we're not talking about women coming in and saying, I've got a headache, I need an abortion. We're talking about people whose water has broken preterm, or who have preeclampsia preterm. Like, these are people who will die if they are not given the abortion they need. But what these states, Idaho and Texas, are arguing is that they should be forced to wait until they're almost dead, or better yet, they should be sent out of state. Except that in the process, which is obviously disruptive, very expensive, and dangerous, the woman can go from being at risk of her health to at risk of her life. And too bad for her if she's on a helicopter when that happens. Not to mention that some of the repercussions of these women not being treated because they're not at death's door are things like brain damage, permanent kidney damage, having to have a hysterectomy, permanent infertility. And these are things that Republicans think are acceptable because they want to control your body that badly. So understand, again, they already had their full abortion bans. The Biden administration said, hey, even with your abortion bans, you must abide by Mtala. You must treat pregnant people who come in an emergency situation and stabilize their health. And these Republicans sued because they were so outraged that the Biden administration would say this. They sued. The Biden administration has gone to court with them. It's gone back and forth. And our Supreme Court, who is populated by extremists nominated by Donald Trump and put in by Republicans, has allowed these dangerous bans of Mtala to stay in place while they were waiting to hear the arguments in this case. And so there is real reason to believe most people expect that they are going to rule for Idaho. They are going to allow the state's rights to preempt, basically, the federal law. And if the Supreme Court does side with Idaho, by the way, this will impact somewhere between 10 and 14 states. 10 and 14 states that have extreme abortion bans will likely start refusing to treat pregnant women who come into an emergency room for basically any reason. I can't overstate enough how deeply sinister and even evil the Republicans are who are pushing this agenda, and the right-wing judges are who are enacting it and making it possible. Please talk to your friends and family about what a dire situation this is. With Mtala already in place, hospitals in abortion ban states are already turning pregnant women away. One doctor said These laws are making pregnant people radioactive in emergency rooms, and that's with Mtala protections still technically in place. Imagine what will happen if the Supreme Court says, well, their state law says that women don't have to be treated until they're about to die, and, states' rights and all that. It's a very terrifying moment when this ruling comes down. If it rules in favor of Idaho, I want you to remember to channel your power, channel your rage, and vote these fuckers, excuse my language, out. Because they don't care about our life, and they don't care about our health, they don't care about our families, and they don't care about our children. They care about power. And if nothing else proves it to you, I hope this case does, so please pay attention.